as you are using, faster and faster MacBooks, and I'm sure you and I are both excited for the iMac Pro at the end of the year. I had different contradicting thoughts than you on the purpose of 8K resolution, as definitely only YouTubers at your status or filmmakers at your status can really afford to film at that resolution. But I'm curious because you've probably seen it and worked with it a lot more than I ever have. I don't think I've ever seen an 8K image, period. Do you think this is something that's really only going to be useful on like a TV or a lap or a desktop, or is this going to make its way down to smartphones, or is it something that's really only useful at a large scale?
Wow, yeah. Resolution. I've thought a lot about resolution.
Yeah.
So shooting 8K.
You're kind of the pioneer for that.
Yeah, maybe a little. I think I shoot 8K for all the reasons that Red will tell you the same stuff, which is all the downscaling and downsampling and sharpness you have and the ability to crop and reframe, all that stuff, to export at 4K. So that's the same reason why people shot at 4K to finish in 1080p. It wasn't necessarily like a new standard. It was just kind of you get that extra flexibility with a bigger sensor. I think, and maybe in however X number of years, I don't even know, when everyone has an 8K TV, people will be shooting in 12 and 16K, whatever those resolutions are, to do the exact same thing, to get an extra little bit of detail out of it. But I'm still working with trying to figure out who watches things in 4K and who never watches things in 4K, who has a 4K screen, who doesn't and never will, doesn't care. I have people, I'm sure you have lots of friends who are trying to get a 4K computer monitor and a 4K TV. They won't buy a TV if it doesn't have 4K. But I also know a bunch of people who don't care at all. They go in Best Buy and they'll be like, this TV is $400 and this TV is $2,400. I'm buying the $400 TV just because I just need a TV. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
And those type of people watch the videos just like we do, but they will never click 4K. So it's tough for me to actually figure out is it worth it? I think that question is probably not at this point, but moving to the future, the small percentage of people who do click 4K, who do care about extra resolution, who do care about sharpness and detail, they will appreciate shooting in 8K and using all those extra features.
I also agree, and I think that's a good question to ask when you're dealing with such a huge amount of pixels. Is that is the fact that computers keep getting faster and cameras getting better so that we can record at high resolutions mean this is just a linear incremental thing, as in in 100 years we'll be at 100K, or it kind of makes sense to admit that there might be a limit in which the human eye doesn't detect an increase in quality and might just say, I do have lots of friends, like you said, that just say 1080p is fine and it's half the price. I'm going to go with that because I don't need to see every single pore. So it's kind of, it's like you said, a widening demographic of people who don't need it and people who do think it's necessary. But at some point, isn't there a wall we could hit?
There's different size increments of how far you can jump forward. With smartphones, when you think of the size of a smartphone, we went from 4.5-inch displays to 4.7-inch displays to 5-inch displays to 5.2, 5.5. So we had all these little steps. With resolution of a TV, it's been 720p for years and years and years. Then 1080p for years and years and years. And now 4K. And it'll be 4K for years, I think many years before we even think about the next step beyond that to take up, because like you said, humans can only perceive so much. So yeah, that's another interesting thing to think about. I don't even know. I can't tell the future, so I just kind of watch it as it unfolds.
Oh, I just thought I don't think anyone knows, but it's just an interesting discussion because computers are advancing at incredible rates, but it's at a certain point, we're starting to see that divide between people who want it and don't want it, but only time will tell, of course.
True.
And as we're talking about the future of tech, that's kind of what I like to talk about on my channels, is just where things are going. There's this theory of when smartphones, especially Apple, because they're notorious for removing ports, are going to start deciding that we don't even need a charge port. If we can master wireless charging correctly, we won't have ports at all. And then we'll have even more space in a phone. So my question is, do you think Apple would be the first to do that? And do you think that's always a bad idea?
Or it will be
So
better
just
at
to be
using
clear, we're talking about removing the last port for everything. Like, so it's just what, yeah, okay. So yeah, if I look at the current landscape, yeah, I think Apple would be the first to do that. As far as when they would do that, I would hope it was when wireless charging is so good and so easy that it's a
Right.
no-brainer to get rid of that last port. Because if you try to do it now, obviously you'd not enjoy it at all. You'd have to get a wireless
No.
charging pad and line it up just right, and when you take it off, it stops charging. You have to put it back the same way again. Obviously, you don't do that right now, but you do want to incentivize wireless charging tech getting better and getting faster and getting easier. So yeah, I guess I would see Apple being the first one to do that, and of course getting the usual crap they would get for removing ports, because it's like a prophecy fulfilling itself. Like the joke lives on that we finally made a portless slab. But yeah, no, I think that I could see that happening actually, and it'd be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like you said, it's really not that impossible anymore. And it used to be a joke to say that, oh, it's just a slab of glass now. But now it's starting to be possible that as we're seeing ports go everywhere and leave, that Apple a lot of the times, because they have such a loyal fan base with Apple sheep like me that just buy whatever, they know that they almost have a responsibility to say, it's time to move on and you better catch up. Because most of the time we can agree, or a lot of people agree, I don't necessarily, but we're not ready to remove the headphone jack, or we're not ready to remove the SD card slot or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like the chicken and the egg again. Like if you work for Apple, do you decide to remove a port right before it's ready to incentivize it getting better? Or do you keep waiting and waiting and waiting for it to be ready, and then by that time you're too late and you should have moved on a while ago? Like it's a tough choice for both.
Sure. Yeah, and there's not necessarily a right answer. I just think it's an interesting part of our future, the idea that I can already hear the complaints. I can already imagine the video that I'll someday make about why it's okay to not have any ports at all, and people complaining, like, I can't use my phone if it's on the charger pad. I like to hold my phone while it's charging, or that means we have to include wireless headphones in every purchase now. Sure, there's lots of problems with it, but it may be in the greater good.
Yeah,
Good
I've seen all these also like little hints of like better versions of wireless charging that are, because obviously we have to have like these tiny contact points now to get it to work, but maybe being able to put it anywhere on a mat and it works, and then when you get past that, being able to put it anywhere on a desk and it works, and then being anywhere in a room and it works. Like there's again incremental steps that you at a certain point you decide, all right, now it's definitely easier to just put it on a desk and charge, and we can get rid of the port. You never plug it into your computer anyway. But yeah, it's somewhere on that line.
Definitely. I'm excited for that future. If they can figure that out and make it cheap and work well, I'd love to have a future where we're using less wires. I get sick of it.